age one ho na beki one say yeah the mean my bridal services say I play I force call by your BB fine manicure pedicure and not on him and all of those things or to be more what's on the crampo one the quote certain Old Testament passages be, but the or education. But I could be one of them, Yaman here, be bizarre more mouse or that would be done enterprise, a broad school academy or Edu Academy School Junction, Echo William Kakra, that would be done enterprise or ho, or Tanyama would is ban as well as provision, so or Tony B. The Yaman Hinabi and see you patronizing them now. I mean, at affordable rates, so sometimes another crump to compare, some major stores over town I wouldn't know prices or phone. See, you borrow recommend I'm a beer there won't go that will be done enterprise abroad school academy. Now won't go to go ho. Father me money in our home. And if he memune jewa I'm bring you a chop meaning that we want be pa but in the coming days if they invite you maybe but also who ambition in the sphere of politics I mean that too da mufunu wɔ anim hɔ and all of that. Also store no ɛtɔn towels na diaper tissues and dɛm nneɛma no nyinaa asadze ahorow spray perfume dɛm nneɛma no nyinaa wɔso ɛtɔn bi wɔdze no dza no abra yɛafa nkramofo do hɔ aso ɛda no hɔ a ɛfa dɛm kwan no do a before ebedu Pennywise ne drug store wɔ no ebehu ne Memu na Egyewa ne fiadze no wɔ hɔ kakraba dɛm Amenson pipe no wɔɛpo ho kakra a Memu na Egyewa Audi ihu okura bisi ejewa no store no obachiro na to them yema nyina say dam kofi na we say him God is one building sa boy onia isibu onia ba isibu so fascinators na the canopy na ngwa na bridal services so when I want see anko was a boy apem na just God is one building then channel na bon the E&E no so or Petrona. I'll hear what come out saying, kind and more saying I mean, can one it's all right, time I'm a so from on solo, and unfortunately, for some reason, I'm a fancy farm, I can come a fancy Bible number and see we will try to the able manage to know. Na yen hunza and sometimes disadvantage in a yamabi or an fancy no I no boy but I believe the able manage na yen who might be all right. Mo Brabade Koforudua Church of Christ, there to Seka, Equadjokwa before go to secondary school, in Kruya Ibasa or children, Elho, Yesin Brabade Koforudua, a sort of ho, and I was, he said, if your classroom will be any classroom will be, see, I will do Brabade and Akoforudua, maybe said the Church of Christ or him, a wombo and Semono, or by chain, Equa Frank, before I go to Frank, no school hono, and when I were Frank, no school quano do all pair. But the school no mu, but yeah, well, Frank, that's the nearest landmark I did to me. I can see. And I'll be said that Frank in school and watch out and I be said the Church of Christ. So, well, and I was she could see their brother and infidence. One brother, nine, she and Uncle Pon was some name shares are Uncle Pon over the man. All right, in the no, yeah, but what should be about the measurement of the temple of God. Yeah, but what share. Uncle Pon, you could I have a book of Revelation, but yeah, share entire book and just the two chapters, chapter 21, possibly, I hope they put me out call chapter 21, 22, so because, I want a need equal. I mean, I don't or describe no way, another discussion, or focus on, or friend, and, the temple, the new heavens and the new earth and all of that. So I'm sure the book of chapter 22, no, so see, I'm not since actually new heavens and the new earth, but yeah, there new heavens and a new earth, and also no funny the new Jerusalem, another the holy city, that I'm not saying. Say John war, I mean quoting, quotes Isaiah chapter 65 verse 25, or may you there, whatever we are this other work kind of from verse 1 up to verse 10 here, the bride of Christ or the city of the living God, the Jerusalem Concrono and the church and all of that. See, on I describing I mean, last 2 weeks, yeah, share BB about the glory of the new Jerusalem and the new heavens and the new earth. And how I believers see also the yet the Yankopon name yam 80 ho. If you act chapter number 2, may Hundan Kofono, yam our so no a Kurmanu, if we the last week you share the light of the new heavens and the new earth. So yɛbɔhwɛ no so wɔ hɔ yɛhu no how a asɔre no so demonstrate nyankopɔn no light no and all of that say yɛbɔhwɛ no so wɔ hɔ and also the fact that believers see I mean also that made the light of the new heavens and the new earth and also the yɛde ɛwɔ hɔ Matthew chapter number 5 verse 14 to 16 ɔma ɛhu dɛ wiase ne kanea and all of that also the yɛhyerɛn wɔ ɔman no mu so that biribi a yɛsum wɔ no at least yɛahyerɛn wɔ hɔ amanhoɔ a wɔwɔ sum no mu wɔafi sum tum no ase na wɔaba kanea no ɛwɔ ahemdze no mu and all of that of course yɛnim dɛ Christ no ɔyɛ the light of the new heavens and the new earth okay I come down to Revelation chapter number 21 also the city no mu no that city of the living God in the church of the firstborn, another the church of Christ, on here area, them natural luminaries, okay, on here the may cosmic lights in the beam, them literal, another natural lights, sun and the moon, Bosum area no on here beam because all the appointed, I mean, because Christ no yeah, the main news have another city of them city, Ahimana yɛ another kingdom no Christ no yeah the light. Of course, in the John chapter number 9, Christ is on the or didn't who is that he is that light. And of course, light is light wakakania or Josema resurrection or Josema salvation and all of that. I can Roman chapter number 13 verse 12, 11 and 12 the correlation between the light and resurrection. Of course, Christ himself is the resurrection and life. So it means that the new heavens and the new earth, another war asɔre no mu no wɔyɛ resurrected individuals okay without dying wɔnwu biem ɛwɔ hɔ in John chapter number 8 verse 51 wɔnwu biem so therefore what we have to do dɛ yɛyɛ abaka no ma anadɛ owu yɛfie yɛayɛ owu nya no fo yi ma wɔakae dɛ yɛba da Nyankopɔn no kanea di wɔ biribi esum wɔ biara and all of that nti yɛhwɛ dame kasa no ɛwɔ hɔ last week na yɛbɛɛ no nti dama mɛka no afei you're talking about them jasper stones and all of that jasper stones ɛbɛka ho na wɔtie here no you can verse I believe verse 11 to verse 14 you talk about that jasper stones and all of that just like they were describing I mean or a temple imagery were describing them jasper stone as clear as crystal and all of that. So yeah, with them Jasper Stone now, then it means that at least or John the throne of God. Okay, I'm real Moses or four cocono, Mount Sinai and all Jasper Stone, but upon that Jasper Stone, so yeah, who the may Jasper Stone new heavens and a new earth, another the bride of Christ, and it means that or demonstrated another denote Yakupon enthronement, another Christ enthronement in the new heavens and the new earth, and of course believers no so were my invitation they fi so yambra come through the blood of Christ yambra hobby so that baby or no we co-reign with him in that new heavens and a new earth ɛwɔ hɔ nti yɛbɛbɔ hu also the wealth of the kingdom okay that stone no baba na bobo din wo ho no wo so no so or the yankopon enyim yamedi e wo ho and imagery of elegance okay of wealth of royalty power and beauty all wrapped up in one see the baba na last week ye bobo din ni hinara no the man na aseche e wo ho but that has these are figurative okay that doesn't mean that you're questioning your canantinanto gold and diamond and all of that them abunuma either one and I say, well, this kind of language, ebi ɔyɛ na ɔyɛ yi kakra no wɔfa adze no ɔyɛ trial so binom sɛ wo na ha de wo sɛ yɛnti hia na ɛkɔ so yɛaka nanto gold no ɔna ɔka ɛkyerɛ ɛka nanto gold do who told you that see you have to understand the package you have to understand this cryptic language this secret also that say okay in order to make an informed decision not as if they literalize already my problem baba okay so if you say bebo hu the also the city no so ye yankopon no kro no konkon of course even the kro na no on either church of the firstborn either the church of Christ can Hebrew chapter number 12 verse uh Hebrew chapter number 12 verse 22 to 23 now yehu there that city now the city of the living God or the same as the church of the firstborn and Christ being the firstborn that connected the church to the bride of Christ another the church of Christ see no mu no yɛbɛbɔ ho da also wɔ 12 gates, 12 angels. Okay, nti asɔre biara a yɛwɔ wiase, asɔre biara na bɔfo gyina akyiri. Nti nsɔre na nkɔ asɔre biara anyhow dɛ ɛkɔ biara kɛkɛ. No. Asɔre biara na aba bɔfo papa. Nti ɛkɔ nsɔre bi wɔ sɛ bɔfo ebisi bi do. Na ɛhwɛ nneɛma bi a wɔyɛ no wɔ hɔ a na ebi sɛ ɔde aba bɔfo na ebisi bi no mu ɔyɛ dɛm nyɛmanyɛma wɔ hɔ. Bible bɔfo bi emisi biara do wɔn di dɛm nyɛmo na wɔyɛ hu no wɔ hɔ no. But so that should tell you that Asobiana or Damanotin. So we have the 12 gates, 12 angels, and the names written on the gate, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. So once I hear about the 12 tribes of the children of Israel, no, Chediyenya, Old Testament imagery of the 12 tribes, you know, with the apostles, okay. And say, I mean, Yehuno, Damakasa no war, Act chapter number, them 12 tribes, you know, and when a connection with the kingdom, you know, yeah, Bebo Hunu. Of course, the kingdom belongs to them. Okay, first of all, because to them belongs to the prophet, and this way, kingdom no was a promise given to Israel. But of one James in tin if you hear my main for so many Kwande, Yame Yankopo number L. But you can act chapter number 26, verse 6 to 8. Now, I want to Paul Okase concerning the resurrection, of Israel. Okay, that the 12 tribes, also that the 12 tribes had hope to attain onto that same or that goal. That may what okay. I mean now talking that was in the context of resurrection. See, Okasa about the resurrection of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, ɛbɛrɛ bɛba mu a ɛbɛrɛ bɛnya mbere no yɛkɔ yɛn anim yɛbɛkasa afa resurrection ho owunya no ho because many of us today they believe the yewa yɛkasa paradise na yɛatwɛn dɛ owunya no bɛyɛ den ɔbɛba ɛwɔ hɔ but there's a framework of time. Okay, another time frame for which Jesus can res owunya no bɛyɛ den obi take place. I see Jesus can ask some na say ebia awo either challenger Jesus ma ebe o ma bere the more wunya na baba na bia also ebia shaha because of which traditions also kado ade no mbe ya na actually in a way no a challenge yankopon no which is not also on the best way to do as a Bible student. Okay, in Matthew chapter number 8 verse 11 to 12 and trying a bera or winya and burden or baba. And then, of course we saw them winya no in 70 AD in Matthew chapter 24 verse 31. That gathering or one it was that gathering relating to that resurrection. Until Paul may you there or Matthew chapter number 26 about the 12 tribes you hope and a weapon word and 122 that hope of resurrection and all of that. So we will look at the kind of resurrection we no kronia bazi. No so say yehwe but I mean that is to tell you the man what say. But later also James also or Troy about the 12 tribes which were scattered abroad who had been begotten again to a living hope. So that begotten for okay. And I mean wow for begotten again to a living hope through the resurrection of Christ and therefore a new birth with incorruptible seed. The James Suba Academy Assembly BL. All of this and only here no I just a quote from Ezekiel chapter 36 and Ezekiel chapter number 37, and also Isaiah chapter number 49 about the resurrection. And see, I won't share the me about resurrection also. Okay, so Christ is only you winyana da. That's a wubu we should not Christ in that. Then you have already know. And yet the more winyani be Into the Bible says, yeah, but them be ma the yellow biem arada yenya dame bachibono dame incorruption another immortality in the eye than yenya and if you're immortal so the yen name what we and the and all of that. See, it's just a matter of time a book now. That may kind of sitting so what I meant 12 number 12 or them high walls and 12 foundations which are the names of the 12 apostles and 12 which are the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. See, Paul can say about the about that temple that was under construction earlier in the book of Ephesians. I believe Ephesians chapter number 2 verse 19 to verse 22 okay say father man them temple another dame city now was in a wall, no, our high walls, with 12 foundations, which were the names of the 12 apostles. And Paul Casafa, I mean, city, at the time I was then Willie Sino, in both Ephesians chapter 2, verse 9, verse 19 to verse 22, and also, uh, you First Peter chapter 2, verse 5. So, the menyama yeah kind of last week in hina about the kingdom of God in hina no ya da nya John nkotina na waka, but apostles no so now already in wide and what throw what that for hunty. What you say in the book of Revelation was already under construction or uguda word and we'll see the main one because it talks about foundation. It be in here foundation. Okay, we are building a city. Okay, that body of Christ in the world. So you need a foundation. Then you build. They be similar. Then wako ewi Okay, so kind of Ephesians chapter number 2 no kakra na mo hwɛ. Let's see what is there in Ephesians chapter number 2 about this to a city now our high walls and 12 foundations and all of that. Actually, if it's a woman, it's still oye ebien nchichima oye 19 now. I can bro because me fancy reading in your house. Also there. Now therefore you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. So the household of God, honor the New Jerusalem and another that holy city, Okay, so already these people know now what by Uncle Ponu what new heavens and a new earth. But now then we'll see we okay. Also having been built on the foundation of the apostles. So you see the same foundation, the same 12 apostles na John or Canona Paul so no can but I know you see present active I think verb when present active indicative or ya no good or than or kodo. I was say having been built okay on the foundation of the apostles and the prophet Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone, okay, in whom the whole building being fitted together grows into a holy temple in the Lord, okay, in whom you also are being built. So you see, at this time, no good away the Holy See being built, okay, or in the case of subjunctive, I believe, or in the case of yeah, good yeah, present continuous tense, okay, being built together for a dwelling place of God in the spirit. So at this time, and we would worry then Holy See ever hole. Now then when we by John doesn't they or Tron there, why then we see where we ever hole. The same thing Peter so or be retreating Apollo and okay. So all these things they wrote somewhere in AD 60s. I think a book of Revelation was written in somewhere AD 60s, AD 60 somewhere that okay, and AD 51. So I believe what was second First Peter epistle. So all these things they were watch at that time and I don't know the double consummate a dano will be serious so that they will be protected, they will be your protection and also have peace as well. So first Peter chapter number 2 verse 5 and no small kind there. Also, you also as living stones. So we are talking about the same stones as living stones are being built up. So at this time, somewhere AD 61, it was being built up. It was in 70 AD in a way then OCV. So at this time they were being built up a spiritual house. So that should tell you there. And some that you kind of Hanoi spiritual and your physical. That is why is the people are still waiting for the new heavens and the new earth. That is why people are still waiting for the kingdom. Be good aware then watching the kingdom, but because they want to see it, what people doing was here then what this see what do who. But as this also it does not come with observation. I saw also another kingdom here came, them city with high walls and 12 foundations, which is the 12 apostles. And I don't know, or a spiritual. It does not come with observation. Yet people want to what people doing over there. What and then they are was in age or was my hands in burn because they want to see it visibly descending. But of course, that kingdom does not come with observation. But there, Jesus catch on there. Ne is one home be a one can consider kingdom of Baba in Mark chapter number 9, verse 1. See, so share a kasi eja was so maybe a jamwaso is who kingdom be or Jama wing one quando eden. All about our tai, we are seeing maybe a Jamaica room, but my yake, Mamrican also in your down, Mam can try to wabba the dog. See, Jane also say, okay. And so also there now you also being built up a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, okay, to offer us up a spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. So see, everything we are talking about in Irano has to do with about the spiritual realities of the kingdom. Adore your literal. So the new heavens and the new earth, Also yakara wabana I be back and or and all of that. Because you see, physical and all the training in everything we want to see with the naked eye. And the Yakara doesn't cry about the Wahini, Hun, Wahin, and all of that. See, it does not come with observation. See, true faith, Nadia, then, is in the Mazano, Waba Elho. So, Damreka, temple no that building no another none of this no that building or temple no was I mean totally I miss Jamaica no even more they want to see it with their naked eye and it does not yeah that's Bible yeah, then Bible no or church Bible no on church physical temples. I mean as far as the New Testament is concerned and the church now Christ could be seen the new heavens and the new earth. Also be by Christ why about the fulfill. And what fulfill yeah no on our spiritual on yeah ma yadi in your yadi and yadi who so being built in the time of the first century where I mean Paul Crampono in Second Corinthians chapter 6 verse 16 no quotes quote Ezekiel chapter 37 verse 28 to 26 to 27 or 28 ɔkaa biribi wɔ hɔ there I mean also yeah bɔhyɛ bi also there that it was a promise that believers will walk in them in that new temple that new heavens and the new earth believers will walk in them and dwell in them and they will be his sons and daughters see Oyada promise I mean through Ezekiel no wasn't Israel okay but at the same time so wɔn the Gentiles yɛbɛba na yɛabɛɛ yabana nso bi nti as many as believe dodoɔ a wɔgye di John 1:12 following what's what making right there man yankopɔn about the number to work with the remnant of Israel for kakana wɔgye di yɛn now together in that new heavens and the new earth. This is a reality to my understanding ɔyɛ adze a ɔwɔ hɔ sisi ara ɔnyɛ adze a afei na yɛtwɛn dɛ yɛwu bi na yakɔ ekinya because already them glory na yɛ kɛn no ɔyɛ adze a asɔ no sisi ɔde yankopɔn enyimnyam no edi ɛwɔ hɔ ɔsɛ Christ asɔ no mu na enyimnyam nka no. Okay, then we also have in Revelation chapter number 21 down to I believe verse 20 following so to see that there's a light so our kingdom no mu ɛwɔ hɔ. So these are the things that we have to but also yet task that way then or ya do what is a year benefit another year enjoy but my year can on yada what they you over here then what do who ever that is why sometimes here would be no you can't and I confused the actually able there I mean literally we say no but it doesn't work that way okay all right so this is what we are speaking of it's been I mean that kingdom another that church, another that new temple of God, what typify, as a bride of Christ. That may last week, or Revelation chapter number 21, verse 11, verse 9 to verse 9 to 10, you be able to there. The many new heavens and that holy city, crew chrono, we may you hundo ye, the Gamba Naba, the John, Buffalo Catcher, John Debra na menkyerɛw kuro kronkron no ɔsɛ nyankopɔn Christ na aba the year no and of course him that Christ in the year no only the bride of Christ so that is the new Jerusalem that comes down out of heaven from God to be with men see I'm not gonna count too but there are some people here should do a time will come over for a hints now quote that was Bible and church them who one can wage also to my hints in but a little buffer hints and call no that hints will come and dwell with men forever in the world without end okay in the world without end so that is what Bible teaches. Bible does not Bible no on just a world with but on also world without end Ephesians 3:21 okay and so is the situation is the case and say that mama yehu do present reality okay for us today okay them are I mean, people believe that heaven, no, or inaccessible to us. That new heavens and the new earth are inaccessible to us. What permitted the only it was inaccessible to men. but wapon fufuru mi de wabɛyɛ accessible to my through the blood of Christ. Ɛbɛka Hebrew chapter number 10 verse 19 to 20. Ɔsi yɛnam Christ ne mogya no do na ɛda ahyɛ no kronkron bea hɔ. Israel fo wɔntu wanhyɛ no wɔ it was inaccessible because of abo no mogya nti wɔntu wante wɔn ho nti every year no na nipa koro pɛ na ɔtum kɔ hɔ. Okay, wɔasa nkɛn wɔyɛ den wɔgyina ɛban n'akyiri but wapon fufuru mi de I mean yɛabɛ ebenya dame access no through the blood of Christ ɛwɔ hɔ. So the moment ɛbɛbɔ esu na ebenya contact with the blood of Christ no enya access to him, to konkrom bi ɔdam new Jerusalem, dam new heavens and a new earth, that holy city no enya bi ɛwɔ hɔ. Okay, that is the time of invitation. If what can sampa na yɛde kyerɛ we are inviting you to the most holy place ɛwɔ hɔ. And these things are accessible now. See, just open to abo no what's one way won't to me da or the whole 24/7 editing putting that enya access that's burden yɛde bɔkɔ yɛ na megwamba no do na n'asɔ no do na ɛde yɛ den yɛde yɛ dame access ɛwɔ hɔ but yɛn mu bebree we think that oh wɔsi de yɛwu wie a na Christ bi aba yɛ mpɛwɔlɔ enyim no ehu ne da na wɔsɔ ɔba so ɔba na yɛ adaka do ebugbe na yɛ nenam na yɛtutu na yɛ nenam wiem na yɛkɔ I mean that is what people want to look at but that be from with we had the madisua ɛbɔhwɛ owunya no so na ase kyerɛ ana na adesua kakra ɛwɔ hɔ. All right, so that may kind of measuring of the city. If you question measurement, Revelation chapter 21, verse 15 to 22, no, you question you can measure a city a king, the bride of Christ, the holy city, the new Jerusalem, the new heavens and the new earth, the bride of Christ, you know, what was seen. And one question in Susino so no hunsun sando ewo. And so start with verse 15 also there, and he who talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city, 8 gates and 8 wall. The city is laid out as a square. The city knows we laying out the square. Its length is as great as its breadth, and he measured the city with the reed 12,000 furlongs. Its length, breadth, and height are equal. Verse 17. Then he measured its wall 144 cubits, according to the measure of a man, that is, of an angel. Verse 18. Then the construction of its wall was a jasper. So now a jasper stone, and wasn't repeating, was a jasper, and the city was pure gold, like a clear glass. I ain't been watching that Jamaica, so I can answer to gold into See, this is all just for or demonstrate Yankupon glory. It's just to demonstrate, the glory of God. Not necessarily that literally we are going to be working on, gold and these diamonds and these precious, metals, in heaven. Verse 19: The foundations of the wall of the city were adorned. So that is cosmeo, yakandado. That is to bring forth a new world order. Okay, Christ now no be first world order no was about the Jerusalem temple, the Judaism and everything. Then we have the new cosmeo, new arrangement. Okay, so the walls of the the foundation of the wall of the city were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth emerald, 20, the fifth sardonyx, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolites, then the eighth the beryl, the ninth the topaz, the tenth the chrysoprase, whatever, the 11th the jacinth, and the 12th the amethyst. I believe that is I know interesting names, okay. But 21 also, then the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each individual gate were of the pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold. See, the street it's a pure gold. So literally we are going to be walking on gold. Like the transparent glass. Okay. Now these things are, as I said, they are just to demonstrate the glory of God. Or the ɔnyɛ be as literal as them and yɛka so them yɛka no yɛkenka so John Adana John Noyd and no singing is about the temple of God, the new temple, the church, of Christ. Okay, in that spiritual state, because remember that in Revelation 1:9, John was in the spirit. In that's my on your literal new heavens and a new. He was in the spirit. What the will reveal what he shared. No, see, we are not talking about the more literal. What I can to literal gold to do. Okay, neither or ya then doesn't mean so then on be okay, so that is what adjoining joy then ohuni and of course the main imagery no the main yama yakeke hinara no or was several references were upon the donumu okay, starting all the way back to the book of Genesis. The main banner the stones of Bobo Hunitin chrysolite and what have you no say a reference to Old Testament bohu bebree okay uh I mean Genesis, but we see his stating that he was measuring the city. Okay, that is the measurement, say yeah, the contrast, the measurement that yeah, first measurement to a book of the same Revelation chapter 11 or yeah measurement to be then okay, no so the same with the same read no so yeah the measurement so yeah share them two measuring no another means na what is the means to see yeah share the way or then and Revelation chapter number 11, verse 1 and verse 2. So, both in chapter 21 and chapter 11, you hear the measurements in here be your horn. The answer man also okay. Also now, uh, also then I was given a read. That is Revelation chapter 11, verse 1 and 2. I was given a read like a measuring rod. And the angel stood saying, rise and measure the temple of God. So the same measurement and the same temple, the altar and those who worship there. Okay. So yeah, one word then what worship will okay, the temple of God. So it means that we are talking about believers. So the believers were measured, okay, and measured that and those who worship there, but leave out the outer court, which is outside the temple, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles that they would tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months. So that was the duration of the war, 42 months, now saying 3.5 years, and which one of you, I believe, Daniel, 120 something years. Okay, so that 42 months, correspond with that time now, Jew for and the Roman for soldiers for led by Titus, the Mokona working until eventually Wobubu, Jerusalem in 70 AD. That was the time. So also the one measure inside but outside in the way then winter so it means that you were impe being how war inside versus how about the outside and so I mean I am saying there so kada one measure the temple of God now. I mean speaking of those who were serving him, okay, because also there was some ka ahuna was no, okay, those who worship the Lord in was sitting no temple of God where then was so these are the ahuna na where then was serving Yankopon, those who were obedient to him. And them Revelation chapter number 21 okasa about the altar and all those who worship there. So these are the two things that we have to look at. Okay, but all of these two has to do with the measuring of the temple of God. Okay, one in chapter 21, also one in chapter 11. Okay, but in chapter 22, okay, we are talking about chapter 11. No, what's the one who soon can when I wear and wash me and woman. So I believe that these are the obedient people. No, another these were the saints, another the church. But it says that the outer court is out also the outer court which is outside the temple, do not measure it, for it has been given to the Gentiles. So I think that is figurative, okay, a way of speaking of those who rejected the Messiah. And see, one who now war astronomu temple no more susu ho aka wo susu ho versus an ho na wo outside no. Nti an ho outside an ho wo the what rejected Messiah no. Now that measurement no, so okay measurement na they were being measured, one measure one for destruction and one for preservation. So I think there in Ezekiel, so actually Ezekiel chapter number 8 now, the asɛm no bi yɛ den osi hɔ ɔno de no ɔyɛ marking mmerɛ a Nyankopɔn asɔ de mu wɔde wɔyɛ abosomfie na ahɔ wɔresom awia wɔ hɔ na ahɔ wɔresom bosom Tammuz mesafo no wɔ hɔ no wɔn a bɔfo no bɛyɛ Nyankopɔn ka kyerɛ no ɔma yɛ den ɔma mark ahɔ na wɔredi dɛm. But of course that time no so a wɔredi dɛm abosomsom wɔ Nyankopɔn asɔrefie wɔ nyinara no ɛnde dze ɔnyɛ na bebree kɔ a ɛhwɛ nsɛm a ɔrekɔdo wɔ Ghana asɔre bi mehu na complete I mean, bebree kwa. Okay, but that was your one reference for Ezekiel chapter number 8 and chapter 9. Chapter, I believe chapter 10, verse 11 to our 18. No, or my way the Obama come on, okay. And Tahuna Wolusu, charge one of the Mabusum Suma, or Kodu, one partake, they were, marked for salvation, okay, versus Ahuna were marking for destruction. And so at the time of the destruction, you there, some way. So this is also what is taking place, okay, because this is that temple, no, okay, in our temple, I mean, all starting on the day of Pentecost, the temple of God, and the year come out. So there were people, at the time of judgment in 70 AD, there were people who were marked for preservation, the remnant, okay, alongside the Gentile believers. So they were marked for, they were, measured for salvation or preservation. Versus someone who were outside, I want to then when you're the main attempt, when you're going to be and so on that day, yɛhu dɛm there ahono wɔ believers wɔkɛhyɛ Mount Pella for protection. Now ahono one James I mean they were destroyed, they were caught up in the war and they were destroyed as a result for rejecting the Messiah and also persecuting those who were sent to them and all of that. They also had their appropriate retribution on that day of 70 AD ɛwɔ hɔ. Okay, so that is about the measurement. And also, see, actually, Luke chapter number 21, verse 23 and verse 24. I mean, that is also there. Those, that was speaking of the time of the destruction of the Jerusalem temple in 70 AD. Where he spoke about the Romans surrounding the city. So, actually, also there's one there. It was no man which man who is here wohu ne dɛ ne sɛe a ɛdɛ no boy waben. Okay, so to the extent that also that ahono wɔ mu no wɔngua no nkwa ha ahono wɔ outside the more one then one son who nechi one bum no mama from atar and all of that. Okay, so that was the time of the measurement. Okay, some people believers they were measured for preservation, for salvation. Okay, against ahono wɔ unbelievers na wɔ then or outside the one measure hono amfa nka hono for but of course they were also measured for destruction. So I'll correspond with Luke chapter number 21, verse 23 to 24. No, that American horse and countryside and more, and then more son which you want equal horse. For these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written will be fulfilled. So that means that the time at the watch on Bible here about fulfilling only the main event here, here come home as some. Okay, so that my this was the time of preparation, but John and the no a time wide and the margin wabum ewo. Okay, I mean Luke chapter number 21 no either prophecy in Jesus or kadam kasa in prophecy but John didn't say na oyaza wabum in vision no so or I mean it was just eminent because book was shown in somewhere AD 67 or so prior to 70 AD so that's another text that supports I mean what we are dealing with something that is not in our day or time. Okay, so we are talking about something that was fulfilled in 70 AD, with reference to this. And so the verse says in verse 24. So that means that you see what Manasseh saying there, my John Ohuni, okay, Revelation chapter 21, on yada over here days and time, and that yada funeral. Yada wa baba senoko all the way back in 70 AD. And this I for Revelation chapter 21, there can yama when I could ibia fi na bi no badam na ebi no ba bi so mba cry bi no so waba ebi aba bi so mba and all of that but I tell I can na Jesus is there enyi awedi da wa bra that wa tro no Bible no mu hina obey then obebum all things written not sometimes written sometimes ebi no wa pere where I mean we limit to event of 70 AD but that doesn't work because there's no qualifier also all things written other wa tro in obey then obebum ɛwɔ hɔ and so ɔnyɛ adze ɔresi ɛwɔ hɛn time na abadze hɛn days bia ɔyɛ adze wɔabɛsen kɔ deda but in Luke chapter number 21 verse 24 no also there they will fall by the edge of the sword and be led away captive into all nations and Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. And I remember the same reading on Revelation chapter number 11 verse 1 and 2 about the measurement of the temple of God ahuna wo wom na wo so yankopon won ma onsusu hu kan but was wenja outside okay until that time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Mbra ma me mo fo ho be den over fulfill no e wo ho. But I am more interested in the use of the term nation, no. Okay, and also the uh until the also that they will be taken away they will be led away captive into all nations. That we are soon another nations no one or that from the word ethne, I believe that is the Greek word. That ethne no one, that is the same word that is translated as Gentiles. Okay, that is translated as Gentiles in two places in the same. So what it means is that we have it one time mentioned as nations, okay, and then it's also mentioned as being trampled by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Okay, so it means that Revelation chapter the time of the measurement will be and it means that me will measure here, will measure one measure one in view of judgment no other than Orebano. Okay, so ahanu yehun there that was a judgment no oba hono do no in 70. So may I can both in Revelation chapter 11 and Revelation chapter 21 no ni na relate to about the dam AD 70 as some na then yeah can no. So of course in there some people reject the fact that this happened in 70 AD. That may can no yeah adibia yeah can Baby also no, it's ultimately possible them because they think that we are living in the times of the Gentiles. If you know why, although we are still living in the times of the Gentiles, and see, as my year can then on because but remember also they will be trampled down by or not upon by the Gentiles until their time. Won't be no better than I'm aiming for bill no won't bill no about fulfill. But if you say a context carefully, a bone also there use Ebohun also the times of the Gentiles, is limited to the time that Jerusalem is, trodden down by the Romans. Okay, and so their time has ended. That time now, Gentiles, over then Roman army, led by Titus, okay, that was the time also Jerusalem will be trodden down. Okay, so that means that the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. That was then. That was the time now Titus and the soldiers from Woji the movement were trampled down on, were trodden down on Jerusalem. That was the time Gentiles in the warfare fulfill about the 20 days. Okay, so at the fall and the collapse of the building and the city, that was the time of the fulfillment of the Gentiles. And we are not living in the times of the Gentiles. I better the minimum in around here then. Umbo the may him will be a hadwin here no. Yadamana didn't say, oh, Hoyata wabum. Na waba senior then awkward that though. So that is how we have to unite the zodiac time. One time I then one time album. See, these are the blessings that we should be enjoying rather than to be living in fear. Now that you will shroom. And when instead you enjoy it, you shroom them not about a can also have friends day. In a feeling in them, the young boy brainy how, what brainy how, my job, brainy how, or another. Okay, so now in the damn times of the Gentiles in who have been fulfilled we at the dawn of the fall of the city and the temple. This is here no, we are now in the time of the kingdom of God, okay, that rules and reigns in earth, okay, another in the earth. Okay, we are now in the times of the Gentiles. So no, do we go that? Following that, is the time of the reception of the kingdom, fully, and that also ushered in that everlasting messianic word reign. Christ in everlasting reign now. Isaiah 9:7 that was the time because that was the time obey in his kingdom. Also obey the kingdom no he will sit obat sane godo wa himanumu. Matthew 25:31 not na egwa na about no here to reign. Ni reign no also ya be reign also ye reign ye ahinza onya abadi onya ewiyi ewo ho in the world without end. That man not saying so we are not living in the times of the Gentiles. So uh Namuna Yamaya then Otio Ho Yimahonsa, I mean they look at the what is outside of the kingdom and that they can't see what is inside. They always look at the outside. If we are see and the Muyena Banwa Dawson, next the mini main wabum, and also Yanko Bomba no be see Muyefo, now my home time all of that massa. Look inside, man outside no good share inside. One there among upon Muyor Kodunya, no remnant I pack a creepy woman's Why Yankopon is that my Bible no can one soil and water. Yeah, we have some people like that. So no man outside don't go to and make them statement, There's as I did now, but my bad internet a one adore could be in abanton your head. Now what about that one kingdom no say? Enter Macadam, I Christopher. Okay, yes, but your generation now as you can't afford hopper. And think I Christopher, I know said that at least yama the glory and the light of kingdom and another Christ, or reflect what they do in and at least get able to make some impact be in this crooked generation ahead then ye woman. But I ain't crying more no. I would baby I put them a yet genuine po word them a fame on your sedan then on boa ewo. I mean, yema yan set yan ho apart. Bibles we should come out from them. Okay, in a separate yan home. Okay, yeah, I know I was in way in and all of that. I believe there's a yeah, then kaya but I'm a bananka, but you make little impact to be ɛwɔ ɔman no mu ama ho mpa nka wɔnyim Christ no wahwɛ abrabɔ no ɔdze abɔbɔ bi ɛwɔ hɔ but them American the times of the Gentiles wabe yi dadaado. See whatever you are seeing has nothing to do with the scriptures. Okay, that was just part of what was taking place within that generation according to verse 32. Okay, is it verse 32? Because also that the may Luke chapter number 21 verse 21 to 24 also I can verse 32 no also the many men no about them generation na and in the first century so when you are feel na them I feel not about neither there yet and also there yeah war the times of the Gentiles in whom they be what about some that is a war yeah war a hindi name birim I will Christ you need to him I human more. So by way of contrast, I mean he says that the holy city, the New Jerusalem, was being measured, just as you saw in the first part of Revelation chapter 11, verse 1. It's been measured for preservation of its enduring beauty and glory. So that stone in where you see the gold in a diamond you whatever I don't know is or they will share this that may enduring about the beauty and the glory so that I mean already you notice also there this is again the bride of the lamb see them na ye hu no them na ye hu okay so and therefore it is not something that was coming to an end. Okay, that might be see people, oh, end. Oh, we end time, end of the Bible soon can end time. Bible baby and watch your end time or yeah, so even what the Democrats and what the bay. And say be a cardinal would be also but still there's end. You are saying this world must end. Bible says world without end, although the world must end. Bible says no world without end, also don't know the world must end. It's Yama I see they try to what I mean time and what they said over Birmingham. I had the pound because you know say what you to know what Birmingham or not so what you to know when in your mouth and expectation as you are wide wabum ewo. Okay, but in the Bible here then okay ewo. Okay. Also Christ has shown him the come throughout all generation world without end. Okay, much like Ephesians chapter 3 verse 21. I'm not so uh I'm not saying so again that mama can Ezekiel no zeno ka bi ho at the time Solomon's temple na waya busumdi ewo mu no waya busumdi na this ayana was saying na the same God na the same God or then ebi no so abosuma yankopon ba punishing him na this was the same abusuma na one God na here na about God but of course, Bible say one yami ahuru bebre ho because that yami aye kenzi da una we did ame abono sum da no panish no ndi hinzi bi na ya na henu anu mi wo ye yi wo bo hu I mean we love them okay we love them but ya na ye pele clarity kakra e wo ho de henu anu mi a wo sum eja ho sum ya ho so ye wo bo bi ni dini no one dam yami no aba yami no bo ni dini because hinzi aye nyimi am sum abono sum no panish ho and they say hinzi na ya then ye ken the same God that you cannot have the same God. Because many cases are no when you want to in fact they were marked for that destruction okay and so my yeah kind okay but them I kind of few of them were then in Ezekiel chapter 9 few of them kakrebi ho then will save one so that is what is taking place in Revelation chapter number 21 verse 15 0 quick ɛnwa wɔn measure asɔre ahodoɔ a wɔwɔ inside no Revelation chapter 11 1 and 2 ahodoɔ a wɔwɔ inside wɔn so nyame de wɔso wɔn measure ho no nka so for what for preservation okay but ahodoɔ a wɔwɔ outside no de wɔayɛ then wɔamfa ho na wɔn measure ho na nka ho so it means that they were marked for destruction. I mean, Revelation chapter 22, verse 15. Also, outside the city, no, or ya be full into tufo, abosomsomfo, edwamambofo, them go for ya, they were marked for about the destruction. And now, no, inside the one, but them no, they were marked for about the preservation and also for salvation. Who kwaje and our preserve so our honti. Damana, identity, okay, so that was the case that those who were were inside they were marked for preservation as opposed to those who had been defeated and destroyed in that judgment that occurred in Revelation chapter number 19 and Revelation chapter number 20. Okay, particular second why the judgment to be then or take place at the time. Okay, so that is the case now. Ezekiel chapter number 9 verse 4 no I can't say be but that man no it says that and the Lord said to him go through the midst of the city through the midst of Jerusalem and put a mark on the forehead of the men who sigh and cry over all the abomination that are done within it. Nti ahona na wo ho na wo gu aho wo ya abosomdze na wo ye ho no echiwa na wo ye no ho no no ɔyɛ honahom so now what did they want to sort do so those people they were marked for about the for preservation. Okay, so that is the impact ipoku kakra that was the remnants. Okay, that was remnant impact ipoku kakra na no them city no mu no they were protected during the time of what say about the main judgment. And that is why in Revelation chapter number 7 no you read about those who are the seal of God and they were not to be hurt and actually even that the judgment was restrained until the servant of God had been sealed had been sealed in their forehead. See, Revelation chapter number 7 no so then or kind of what I'm seal no of God. See, so this is what is happening today. Okay, I don't know. 2 Timothy 2:19 no as yankopon yima ho wo ye na de. Okay, I want wo ye na de they bear his mark. What bear yankopon the mark no and they have already been saved. You see, that is judgment too. As why you can it was judgment, but habas who made they were already see when you match now when you made them when you must say when you hear them calculations be out who na ye dem no already na ya doing him. Okay, also I want to win say now some they have already been judged. We boon at 10 or more that the one should be at the airlines is about to go. I mean, just 4 or 5 minutes to be that to go now. Yeah. Oh, auntie, Yamana Adanate, Yankupon Yamaha, where any do. And in I believe Galatians 6:18, Paul said more home be most and this I'm a better mark of Christ. So I want to why I'm going is the word mark no those who are in him or bear anything washanatan so they into onyima ho na wɔyɛ n'abadze na dze no hɔ because nya ho na ɔse asɔre na ɔyɛ Nyankopɔn da ho ɔtete to nsɔre bia na ɔyɛ Nyankopɔn na dze asasa dɛm na adze no ten ɛwɔ hɔ nti ahono wɔyɛ na dze no true believers no a wɔso bɔso Nyankopɔn honhom na nokware mu no they are there and they are his remnant. I mean they have already been marked for salvation, right? Won ba atembum dama John 5:24 can no what say yɛgye dzina yɛtie na asa yɛgye ma ɔsoma ne dza yɛwɔ daa nkwa na yɛn mba atembum ɔsɛ ne yɛtwe me afi wum yɛaba nkom John 3:18 sɛ yɛgye ne dza okay yɛwɔ nkwa but the one just asɛm ne na one gye ne dzi no webu na atanda though. So that is all about judgment. Okay, and I'm not saying so dama okay no dame kuku no where then obado dama Yankopon waka pepepe wo Ezekiel na abadze Ezekiel no time no nti Ezekiel mpo no he was overwhelmed. Second Ezekiel chapter number 8 chapter 9 verse 4 but na watch the way kwana oba for the book kuku Israel for no krampa na kwa he was even overwhelmed no ye no hu pa oh Lord, will you destroy all the remnant of Israel in pouring out your fury on Jerusalem? So I mean, he was overwhelmed receiving that vision, seeing that so much destruction, was going on, and so text, at least remnants, bɔfo no baba mark binom for preservation and salvation na ahon so why then ahon so outside for destruction. I mean, yeah, good idea. Share. I mean, Book of Revelation, chapter 21. Just about Bible at this year. Yeah, share about the measurement of the temple of God. Okay, the measurement, how we measure the implication of that measurement. So the fact there, as our measure will be able to the this is our measure to whoever make it into that kingdom. Now, yeah, can our boss, they have already been marked for salvation. So upon that we will pay, then they are already going to go to be with our maker. All right, here number here 0206685271. 0206685271. I mean, a fra yabajo do a hole na using komo kakra or just 4 minutes to be our can I than yamatin. All right, so uh all right. So yeah, what I mean measurement now in Revelation chapter number 20 Revelation chapter 11 verse 1 and 2 no on the down reading also about a golden reed. Okay, so that to my understanding, no, that golden reed now not the measurement. To my understanding, I mean, it goes with the character of those things which are being, measured. Okay, of course, in the gold, it's a high value. Okay, and much like kind of things that are being spoken of in the measurement of the city walls and gates and that are made of gold and pearl and all of that. So, that should, tell you how Adamanya money narrated and what was being measured in chapter 21, chapter 11, and also in chapter 21. But text us there, the city was in Revelation chapter number 21. I can also Yankupon the city in Ayerkano. Also the city was 4 square. City no also there were 4 square. You kind from verse 15 to verse 21. So also a city of 4 square. Now 4 square no. Now such a day you can 4 square. I mean I the wood day may war and why you 4 corners so one of 4 square no. And that or shredder what we are dealing with here is the most holy place. Because the meaning that you say yaba hemfa yaba konkrom bia ho. Okay, that konkrom bia imagery no way ye fi ho. Okay, because that was a sort of intermediate. Okay, yeah, intermediate. Okay, between the konkrom bia no and outside and our friend abazi or friend is see but see yeah inside your konkrom bia meaning that this is your first component now and or restrain impama yankopon the temple no mu no we the main first component where you need where if you because no it's just a matter of atonement. And reason why and Jerusalem temple no what the first component or your concrom be any there. On my impa quamontum concrom be on there. You see a core to me you bonnie if you ho. And Yankopon no concrom so no fan shop one ho. Okay, in Israel's when you bonnie if you and to buy Yankopon ho. And all right, so they will continue to stand outside. What do I part na watch and watch and so for paying more about every year. Okay, but I had the young there, you will you do young couple about the name you do concom be a hole. Okay, that 4 square is sitting in one is say then you do a hole, meaning there. That may I mean atonement na Christ wa baba for wa ofan wa hano. Okay, wa baby yi. Dan barrier na efio masisi ayenim no mogya do ye den the action konkrom be ho. Okay, so that is the meaning of that 4 square na where then sitting and working ho. Okay, I mean you there from Hebrew chapter number 9 verse 8. Also there so long as a Jerusalem temple no si one of the na kwana wo konkrom be ho no na o ma de di ho. The impuntum yadan impuntum konkrom because of Jerusalem temple. Say, hey, no, we are talking about that temple here. We are talking about the inner court in that. No, I said them TCH, a corner what the Kohono, Wababa the ho. And what I don't know, say, a corner about the other, no meaning there, man, no, you su aquano, where ye if you ho. That do you su aquano, where if you in 70 AD. ɔna ɔbubu Jerusalem temple no because Bible says saa na ɔno nti na ɔma mpantum kɔ Nyankopɔn na enyim wɔ hɔ at the time no. But sisi a meyehu di yehu na wayɛ den waba ebi yɛ efi hɔ so therefore efi mpa bi nya access a yɛde yɛ den yɛde kɔ Nyankopɔn hɔ directly ɛwɔ hɔ. So all these measurements na wɔ measure no dame nyama wɔkeka ne nyinaa no it's all about just telling you that sisi a no access to Nyankopɔn no wayɛ den waba abɛda hɔ. Christ abɛ ewie dɛm nkwagye ho edwuma no yɛ ɔde ne mogya no kɔ kɔnkɔn bi ɔde kapata ma nyimpa no bɔn egya dui tum wie no ekyi ɔbɛn na ɔbɛ invite nyimpa dɛ yɛmbra kɔnkɔn sisi dɛm osu akɔn no dɛm barrier no dɛm veil no weyi dɛm veil no efi dɛm veil of sin no weyi efi hɔ Christ ebi dɛm bɔ no efi hɔ nti sisi ɛkwan a abɛdɛm tɔɔte a wɔde kɔ nyimfa wɔde kɔ egya no wɔyɛ nam Christ no do na yɛde kɔ into the city no a yɛngyina paadu biom dɛm na sɔfo panyin under the old covenant no na ɔyɛ no Israel na ɔsɛ wogyina outside Leviticus chapter 9 no verse 23 kɔ na ɔsɛ wogyina outside tiri ɔno bi fi hɔ aba but since the Christ so wabɛn once and for all a akyi wa extend invitation ɔde invitation as that man hina de akyi yɛn room na yɛn yɛ den yɛn kɔ so that baby a ɔno wɔ no wɔn anhyia dem yɛakyɛ so that is all about that four square na ɛna ɔwɔ no I know concerning the measurements na ɛna John wɔde read no susu de no wɔde man dɔn mfa dɔn mfa susu no dem na ɔyɛ dɛm ɔte ɛwɔ hɔ alright yɛn bere wayɛ bere ɛwɔ hɔ I believe that yɛn bɔ next week yɛba bɔ sɔɔ do wɔ hɔ at least one by one no yɛgudu a yɛkɔ yɛn anim na yɛwie bɔhwɛ chapter 22 yɛwie a yɛakɔ akɔhwɛ adze foforɔ ɛwɔ hɔ nti brabadze kɔforo dua Church of Christ no brabadze kɔforo dua Church of Christ no this is all this brabadze kɔforo dua Church of Christ no yɛwɔ brabadze kɔforo dua yɛn personal line no yɛ 055 1535818 055 1535818 ɛban na yɛbɛsua Nyankopɔn no ho asɛm na yɛhu ma Bible no ɔkyerɛkyerɛ na fi yɛtum yɛhu ame yɛananto no akwam ne akɔdo yɛ ayɛ namba so that at least yɛn abrabɔ pa kakra yɛbɔbɔ no wɔtum wɔ asesa afoforɔ ɛwɔ hɔ in this current generation yɛ den yɛwɔ mi wɔ hɔ Nyankopɔn ka yɛn ho na ɔnhyɛ wɔ n'adom ti amen. Mutumeyo na masoko gafadua mba na oyɛ damage yo awda na mate phone to no ɛna ɔrehwɛ he nti megye finism no menye efi nti mugbe ya na masaka fadua na ayi no bai